The Pakistani Southern Belle revisits the South, Part 1, Hot Yoga, published May 3rd, 2023 by Nadia, Elahi. Hey y'all, it's been a bit since my last post back in mid-March. If you're behind, catch up here at this link. Life on the teaching sabbatical road, I have to admit, is going really well. I'm still working on the PSB manuscript and trying my best to post new pieces as well. But part of the hiatus since the last post was because yours truly took a little trip. As you can see from what the title clearly declares, I took a visit back to the South, my hometown in particular, with stops in Atlanta and New Orleans bookending the trip. It had been some time since my last visit to my hometown of Monroe, Louisiana. It's in the north part of the state if you're unfamiliar. My last trip back home was Christmas in 2021. My first Christmas back home since 2017. The pandemic played a big part in that pause. So after over a year of being away from the South, I was ready to get back there, not to mention to visit the great city of Atlanta for the first time before ending it all in New Orleans. This Pakistani Southern Belle was in much need of both her mom's Pakistani home cooking and the experience of ripping the head off a boiled crawfish before devouring the tiny piece of meat inside the tail. And no, I do not suck the heads. There is much to share about my time in the South, so I decided to break it up into parts, as you can also see from the title. This will be about my hot yoga experience in the South. In case you didn't know this about me, I love hot yoga. It's the only workout I do, aside from occasional walks in my neighborhood, or the 30,000 plus steps I do on my monthly adventures to the Disneyland theme parks in Anaheim. But the hot yoga I do generates temperatures between 105 to 110 degrees, which helps my muscles open and stretch in ways I never could before. I love the feeling of sweating buckets of water out of my body as if I had just stepped out of the shower. Yes, I'm weird that way. But it's the only kind of sweating I prefer. At Disneyland in the summer, I certainly sweat my share, but it messes up my makeup for photo ops. I'm a Southern Belle after all. But in hot yoga, well, I'm detoxing all the cocktails and churros from Disneyland, so it's all good. But back to my love for this yoga. I have been practicing hot yoga, the Bikram method, yes, that pervy guy, the OG style of hot yoga, consistently since 2015. It is considered one of the hardest and most challenging types of yoga, mainly due to the heat. First-timers walk out during class sometimes, something I have never done in all of my years of practicing. Note, due to the soiled reputation of the once famed guru, the Bikram part is sometimes dropped and the yoga is just referred to as 26 and 2. Anyway, this 26 and 2 hot yoga method has helped my lower back problems. Got a bulging disc. And this yoga has also toned my muscles, a big plus when you're over 40. Most importantly, it strengthens my immune system on top of helping me to relax and to be more patient. It can be very hot and difficult in the room. It's a true test of one's stamina and mental capacity to let go and just breathe in and out of the nose for 90 minutes. And in that hour and a half, we move through 26 poses, always the same 26, and 2 breathing exercises, a practice I do regularly 3 times a week, almost without fail. I used to practice 4 or 5 times a week, and I was able to maintain that for a bit, but I find 3 days a week is enough for now. I always arrive to the hot studio 30 minutes before class begins for 2 reasons. To claim my spot, which is in the hottest corner at the front of the room, and to nap and relax in the hot room before class starts. I find it very comforting. Plus, it allows my body to acclimate to the heat before we officially start. I'm also one of the last ones to leave when class is over, as I take full advantage of a long savasana, the corpse pose. Overall, I'm in the hot room for over 2 hours. I'm obviously a fan, and yes, it's probably a weird thing about me. Practicing hot yoga while living in LA is a bit cliche, but even some of my LA friends look at me weirdly when I gush about my hot room experience. And some of my fellow classmates shake their heads at me for choosing the hottest spot in the room. By the way, the pause with the pandemic made it hard to keep this practice afloat. And though I attempted the Zoom classes in my apartment with my windows completely shut tight and the heater on full blast, it never matched the experience I got in the actual hot room. So when I was about to embark on a 2-week trip to the South to visit Atlanta, Monroe, and New Orleans, I thought I'd maintain some of that meditation and hot stretching, not to mention keep my weight from expanding as I ate my way through the cheesy Georgia grits, spicy Louisiana hush puppies, the myriad amount of fresh seafood, and Mom's Pakistani cooking that awaited me during this 2-week stint in the South, where the food, I'm biased, is the best in the country. And since I was going to spend the bulk of my time in my hometown of Monroe, I investigated what yoga studios were available, despite thinking any chance of a hot room experience would be null and void. However, to my surprise, there was a lovely studio on Tower Drive in Monroe that offered the hot experience at a low 90 degrees. But this would be better than nothing at all. I thought, hell, I do Bikram. I can handle this. Okay, let's rewind a bit and refresh your memory. Yes, I was born and raised in Louisiana, and though my years in Los Angeles, LA, the city of angels, the other LA, are aplenty, Monroe, Louisiana has still been my home the longest, though LA is closing in. I have lived in Monroe, Louisiana for 26 years. I have lived in Los Angeles for 21 years. Yes, I am almost 47. Still single and still childless, dear aunties, but thanks for the prayers. When you live somewhere different from where you grew up, it's always a bit of a culture shock to go back. As mentioned earlier, Atlanta and New Orleans bookended the trip home. I started the trip with a 4-day stay in Atlanta, where dear friends Vanessa, French, and their daughter Helene hosted me before I ended the southern visit in New Orleans with a girls' trip accompanied by my older sister Mercy. Again, it was my first visit to Atlanta, but my dozen or so trip to New Orleans. These two cities are obviously in the South, and though I am a Southern girl at heart, the LA gal in me needs time to readjust, which is where the need for my hot yoga comes in. Through my search for some stretching in a hot room, I stumbled upon the Blue Sky Yoga Studio in Monroe and decided to attend one of their hot classes. Again, I do Bikram, so I can do their yoga. So, as for my experience in this class, well, let's just say it was a bit of an awakening for me. I felt a little out of place, and not because I was the only brown girl in the room. I kind of figured I would be. But I was the only one with her hair pulled back in a bun, even my bangs were pinned back, and I was the only one wearing yoga shorts. I was a bit out of my element, something I was not expecting. There were about 10 of us in this 8:30 a.m. class on a Wednesday morning, all women. These ladies were dressed in cute yoga pants, matching sports bras, and some had loose-fitting t-shirts over them as well. A surprise for me, since we're practically naked in the 26-2 class, thus my shorts. Most of them had their hair down, something I can't even do if I'm working out on an elliptical machine. And they hardly appeared to be breaking a sweat, at least from what I could tell. While, surprisingly to me, my face got really sweaty. But these ladies were killing it. I felt like I was in an episode of Sweet Magnolias, taking an early morning yoga class on a random Wednesday, being the only, perhaps, non-stay-at-home mom, the only brown gal, wearing the unnecessary yoga shorts, wishing she got that bikini wax, with her hair tightly tied up. These Southern belles were just cute and adorable, trim and fit, looking like they were heading for mimosas and brunch afterwards. I mean, no disrespect with this Sweet Magnolias comparison. It's my guilty pleasure Netflix show to watch. But meanwhile, during the hour class, I was barely keeping up with the rest of the ladies. Unlike the 26-2 method, this yoga flowed from pose to pose, giving me little time to figure out what posture came next. It was like a scene straight out of a sitcom where the lead, a little out of her element, thinks she's the superstar yogi from the big city of LA, acting like she's a big shot for taking a 110-degree yoga class. So she assumes she can handle any class outside the Bikram method, only to find herself doing postures different than her usual, waking up the next morning with her abs extremely sore, all while the audience is laughing at her. The yoga postures in this class were different than the 26-2 version. We don't do planks and downward dog. And I'm pretty sure I was the only one the instructor touched as far as her helping me position my hips in one of the postures. By the way, the instructor, Courtney, was lovely and awesome. But I felt like I stuck out like a sore brown thumb. Again, only one wearing yoga shorts, showing off my brown ashy legs as lotion is not advisable for sweating, cellulite in full view, and wishing for that bikini wax. But by no means was this a bad experience. Like I said, it was funny, a sort of sitcom, as far as me being the funny one in a room with polished practitioners of this style of yoga. Y'all, it was like that episode of The Golden Girls when Dorothy, Rose, and Blanche go to the gym to work out, and Dorothy and Blanche got conned into getting those flashy and loud workout outfits to fit in, when they clearly did not need them, sticking out like sore thumbs. That was me. I ended up attending that one class during my stay. The one attendance had more to do with me resolving to the facts that, number one, this hot yoga room just wasn't hot enough for me. Remember, 110 degrees in the buckets of sweat. And the postures are not what I'm used to, which is fine. And number two, I was on a bit of a vacation, so my inner voice finally yelled at me, Nadia, let it go. You don't need to exercise, so enjoy time with your family and eat all the damn hush puppies you want. Overall, the yoga experience was humbling, reminding me to allow myself to give into my surroundings and enjoy the time away from the other LA. Later that afternoon, I took my mom out to lunch to the Warehouse No. 1 restaurant overlooking the Washita River where we enjoyed some good mother-daughter time. And I downed 10 hush puppies. And let's not forget, my abs were sore the next day. And that's a win. Am I right, ladies? Stay tuned as part 2, maybe even a part 3, will cover strawberry picking and more of my observations and exciting news from my southern adventure.